Today's episode, getting away from the front, moving on the back, make it a little bit more complete. We're gonna rough in all the metal, but first, do me a favor, like the video, comment below once you've seen it, give me a little bit of feedback, and subscribe to the channel. I wanna see how big I can build this thing, prove a point to my kid, so let's get at it. So we took advantage of the nice weather and spun the car around, made it a little accessible. It was cramped towards there. You can see the remnants of destruction on the ground as we work, but I got that front end to the point that I'm satisfied stopping. So we're back on this corner. Remember, this is how it looked. Haven't had a chance to actually step back and look at the back, but you can see the back driver's corner is sagging pretty hard, and it's because it's completely unsupported. That panel's just flopping in the wind. But this side works quite well, so I'll spend a little bit of time and show you how we get that all squared back off, a little bit of the inner workings, how everything holds itself together, and a little bit of detail of how we get this side to look like the other side so that we can get into the roll pan. Standing inside the car, this is a bit of a mess, but all of this is kind of necessary. What happened is originally we built the car with the doors attached to the cowl, secured the roof up top with the chop, but it started from nothing. I'll try to throw a picture in the middle right here. What ended up happening, obviously, since there's no structure, is nothing fit. So once the roof was on there and we had a basic guideline where things went, put a crossbar between the two rocker panels, which in my case are pretty beefy, so it works out quite well, and then spend hours with a tape measure from known good points and start attaching. This is old shelving out of the garage. We've got a piece here to hold the roof up off the door and set the chop. Same on the other side. But as we measured, we found out where the car wasn't square. So these pieces aren't the same side to side, because what happened is we welded it together was the car was pulled one way or another. So I'd hook up a ratchet strap up in an open hole, and I'd pull it until it was square, and then I'd put in a brace, and then we'd work our way back so everything is triangulated. And what ends up happening is when it's sitting up on the stands now, if my stands aren't level, one corner floats, but this all stops at the back of the doors, so the rear quarter is completely unsupported right now, and we're going to have to fix that. So what I'm doing here is just trimming out that curved radius that would let out the stands to the original fenders there. We don't need it there anymore because we're flattening out the other side. And then take the full sheet of material, get somebody to help, and trace the back side of the panel with a Sharpie so that we can actually cut it down to what's going to be close to fit. Now, everything gets cut a little bit oversized because I can go back and trim it later. But this is a fairly straight panel. It didn't need a whole lot of shape, so I could just cut it straight out of a brand new sheet, and it was good to go. Quality inspector is working now, checking out to make sure that the panel fits. Frank, you gotta get out of the way, buddy. So we're back on cleaning up here. Flapper wheel, get all the paint and Bondo off, and extra set of hands is super helpful with these big long panels. Basically just making sure that we can get it tacked up. And then as we work along the panel, we're trimming it back, because as I can pry it out, I can make sure it's a good tight fit until I can push it right into place with a good solid butt weld. And once we've got the panel lining up as far as we can, we tack it there, then pull the panel out some more and keep trimming it back until everything fits perfectly. It's a bit of a process, but because everything's moving, it's a whole lot easier to trim it on the car as I go than to cut the panel off the car and maybe my Sharpie mark is off. This just makes sure that it's going to line up as I work. So after I marked the opening, the notch for my axle to slide up into when it's aired out, Took the same handle off the weed whacker, tacked it in, grabbed some water pump pliers, and just rolled the lip over. This gives us our shape there because, again, it's not a compound curve. It's only bending in one plane. So in this case, I can do the same thing as I did on the other side. Weld it in there, grab it, roll it over. This gives us our initial shape. And then once it's all rolled over, just cut the pipe off. The metal that points towards the inside of the car gets trimmed back a little bit, so the plier marks aren't going to be affected, and I'll be able to hammer everything straight later. And just like that, we're back to, the old standby axle nut socket with a ball peen hammer. Again, this is all initial shape, but this is what I did on the other side. Basically, it's a good solid impact socket on the back side of the panel. Just manipulating the metal to get that lower roll so that it matched the other side. But as I lift the jack up and down, you can see how much that panel flexes. Without metal moving in multiple planes, it just doesn't go, which is why we're forming this corner here. Now this is all over the buck that I made with a chainsaw and an angle grinder. I'm just hammering in this corner that goes at the bottom edge of that cutout at the front. Didn't videotape it before. There's not really any point in playing it for you in real time, but it doesn't exactly take a whole lot of time to do this at all. So I'll be honest here, I got ahead of myself this morning and I tried to rush the process. This piece here you just watched me make took a total of 6 minutes real time to hammer into this shape. 6 minutes is honestly nothing. Well, I tried to speed up the process, overworked the metal, and tore it, and honestly made it look horrible. The difference is, well, it's a pretty big difference. And honestly, this is just me trying to do something in 3 minutes that I should have done in 6 minutes. The other thing is this. Now, I knew this was a given. Pretty sure this is actually cedar. I can't smell anything right now. But the top half of the buck broke when I did the other side. Not a big deal, it's just cramping it down. But as I was working this side, it actually snapped this part off the buck, so this buck is done. It goes straight into the fire pit. It served its duty, it got its 2 pieces out of it, but if this is something, a little more important, you're taking more time on, I'd probably use, something that you didn't pull out of your backyard. This one's showing cracks all over the place. A little more time and it probably would have broken in more places. So that's my public service announcement, and I'm going to go back to speeding all this up because you've seen all this before, because once we get this side on, we're going to start working on that roll pan. I don't think anybody needs to see me do this in real time. The high-speed action explains the basic process of it. A couple of relief cuts, some hammer work. Basically, I'm just trying to get the shape as close as I possibly can so that I can move on to the middle portion, and then I can come back and fix all my curves later. Okay, so we've got that quarter pretty much close to this side. We're going to use what's left of the trunk lid to fill in the bottom of the roll pan, but we need something to fix this curve here, and in the spirit of not wasting anything, these are the fenders that came off the back that I've been robbing pieces out of for these. And wouldn't you know, the radius is actually pretty reasonable in here, so I'm going to cut a strip out of this section here, and I may actually be able to use the whole fender and actually cut this into here and see if we can't fill in this big gaping hole in the back and finish out the rear end, give it a little bit of structure. Nah, I missed a lot of the video here. I guess I wasn't recording, but the process that's going through on this side is basically the same process I went through on the other side. Just trying to fit up the top curves of those fenders onto the rear and using it as a roll pan. But you can see in the video, the metal is pretty easy to move around, and same process as on the side. Basically just tacking things into place as they fit, pulling them, putting some tension on things, and then trimming it away so that it fits well. The work is far from done here. I'm gonna need a couple of relief cuts, I already know that, and you'll be able to see it later on, but the shape comes together so fast like this that this is the process that works for me, and I wanted to be able to show that, you know, there's nothing fancy going on here. I am just about as low tech as you can get, but it still comes out looking pretty good in the end. This is where we're at. Fenders filled in the gap quite nicely, gave me most of the radius I need. I got a little bit of shaping to do in the middle and the back, but if we step back, it's starting to look more like a trunk and a roll pan. Level out the cut in the back. I still got to fill in that bottom corner there, but I didn't feel like shaping that today. But she's almost there. And that's where we're going to wrap this up today. Now, all these shapes are pretty rough. I'm going to have to come back in. I'll do another video showing how I clean up some of these edges that don't flow quite right. There's a lot of body work to do, but basically today was about getting the shapes roughed in where they needed to be. And if you appreciated today's video, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment, share, do the YouTube thing, give me some feedback, and we'll see you on the next one.